one of the things that we don't see, and it comes out a little bit in the, oh God, bro, there's going to be such a sick move. That would be the way to save the country. Somebody should have made a movie of this because that's the only thing Americans will watch. But there were so many, can I find this? January 6th Select Committee. There were so many like dramatic showdowns in the Oval Office over like drama that was going on. Like when Donald Trump was threatening to fire Rosen and Clark, his acting AG and deputy AG, because he was like, I need you motherfuckers to send letters to the states. This was before January 6th. I need you to send letters to the states saying we found voter fraud evidence and they need to flip their votes. And Rosen and Clark were like, no, that's retarded. We're not going to do that. And Trump's like, okay, well, that's cool. And then I think the next day, Trump sent like a random, I don't know if it was like a staffer or somebody working the justice. He was like, go over there and tell them that if they don't do this, I'm firing both of them and you're going to be the new acting attorney general. And I don't remember the name of the guy, but when he went over and did it, and then word got back to the, I think the White House, like half of Donald Trump's staff threatened to quit. They were like, bro, if you do this, we're at gonzo. And there were all these fights between like the official White House counsel on one side, and on the other side, you've got fucking Giuliani and Powell that are like screaming these insane fucking conspiracy theories. And it's like, and Trump is like, they're making good points, aren't they? Oh my God. Didn't the guy try to fire him, but the one guy said no? The acting AG might have, I don't know if I'm making this up. He might have said, no, Trump needs to do it himself or something. I don't remember. I think, didn't this happen with Sessions as well? When Donald Trump was telling Sessions, listen, if you're not going to defend me from this FBI bullshit, you need to resign. And Sessions was like, no, I'm not going to. So Donald Trump just starts spam tweeting him. It's like, this motherfucker, get him the fuck out of my, get him out of here. It's so fucking retarded. It was Acting Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen and then the Deputy Attorney General Richard Donoghue. Okay, hold on, page 381. Barr felt that he was leaving the department in the hands of two trusted lieutenants, but President Trump immediately began to pressure Rosen and Donoghue just as he had Barr. On December 14th, the day Barr resigned, Molly Michael, special assistant to the president and Oval Office coordinator, sent an email to Acting Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen. The email had two documents attached, both of which were labeled From POTUS. The first was a set of talking points focused on false allegations of voter fraud in Antrim County, Michigan. The second document was the same ASOG report that the president had given Barr. The next, that Barr had probably already said was bullshit. The next day, President Trump held a meeting in the White House with Acting Attorney General Rosen, Acting Deputy Attorney General Donoghue, and I think this is pronounced, is it Cifaloni? Mark Meadows, and then Acting Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security, Ken Cucciolini, and Acting General Counsel of the Department of Homeland Security, Chad Mizell. Barr did not attend, even though he was not scheduled to leave the DOJ until the following week, because he was like, get me the fuck out of here. The timing of the meeting was notable, as the previous day the Electoral College had met and cast their votes in favor of former Vice President Biden. Cringe. During testimony before the Select Committee, Donoghue explained that the December 15th meeting was largely focused on the ASOG report. According to Donoghue, the president was adamant that the report must be accurate and that it proved that the election was defective, that he in fact won the election, and that the department should be using that report to basically tell the American people that the results were not trustworthy. President Trump discussed other theories as well, including erroneous allegations of voter fraud in Georgia and Pennsylvania, but the bulk of that conversation on December 15th focused on Antrim County, Michigan. President Trump asked why the DOJ wasn't doing more to look at this and whether the department was going to do its job. The Department of Justice was doing its job. In fact, Attorney General Barr had ordered unprecedented investigations into the many specious claims of voter fraud. The president simply didn't want to hear the truth. The DOJ found that not one of the bogus claims was true, as explained in Chapter 1, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Introduced to Jeffrey Clark. Representative Perry had introduced a little-known DOJ official named Jeffrey Clark to the president. At the time, Clark was the acting head of the Civil Division and head of the Environmental and Natural Resources Division at the Department of Justice. Clark had no experience in or responsibilities related to investigating allegations of election fraud. President Trump called Rosen virtually every day between December 23rd and January 3rd. The president usually discussed his dissatisfaction with the DOJ, claiming that the department was not doing enough to investigate election fraud. On Christmas Eve, Trump brought up Clark's name. Rosen found it peculiar, telling the Select Committee, I was quizzical as to how does the president even know Mr. Clark? Rosen then spoke directly with Clark on December 26th. Clark revealed that he had met with the president in the Oval Office several days prior. Clark had told the president that if he were to change the leadership at the Department of Justice, then the department might be able to do more to support the president's claims that the election had been stolen from him. So, okay, Clark, who like fucking is a coffee boy, not really, the head of like some like sub whatever fucking agency under the DOJ, okay, is telling his boss, okay, he's telling Rosen, I told Trump that if he were to change out leadership, maybe somebody could get something done around here, okay? Maybe somebody could set this ship right, you know? In his discussion with acting Attorney General Rosen, Clark was defensive and apologetic. Okay, I represent that way more aggressively, claiming that the meeting with President Trump was inadvertent and it would not happen again, and that if anyone asked him to go to such a meeting, he would notify Donoghue and me, Rosen. Of course, Clark had good reasons to be defensive. His meeting with President Trump and Representative Perry on December 22nd was a clear violation of department policy, which limits interactions between the White House and the department's staff. As Stephen Engel, former Assistant Attorney General for the Office of Legal Counsel, explained to the Select Committee, it's critical that the DOJ's conducts its criminal investigations free from either the reality or any appearance of political interference. For that reason, the department has longstanding policies in place, blah, blah, blah. On December 27th, President Trump called Acting AG Rosen once again. At some point during the call, Rosen asked that Acting Deputy Attorney General Donoghue be conferenced in. According to Donoghue's contemporaneous notes, Trump referenced 3 Republican politicians, all of whom had supported the president's election lies in the Stop the Steal campaign. One was Scott Perry, another was Doug Mastriano, a senator from Pennsylvania, who'd later be on the grounds of the U.S. Capitol during January 6th. President Trump also referenced Representative Jim Jordan, what a patriot, from Ohio, praising him as a fighter. Representative Perry and Jordan had often teamed up to spread lies about the election. The two spoke at a Stop the Steal rally in front of the Pennsylvania state Capitol in Harrisburg. President Trump made a stream of allegations during the December 27th call. As reflected in his notes, Donoghue considered the call to be an escalation of the earlier conversations, with the president becoming more adamant that we weren't doing our job. President Trump trafficked in conspiracy theories he had heard from others, and Donoghue sought to make it clear to the president that these allegations were simply not true. Donoghue sought to correct President Trump in a serial fashion as he moved from one theory to another. The president returned to the discredited ASOG report, which former Attorney General Barr had already dismissed as complete nonsense. ASOG had claimed, based on no evidence, that the Dominion voting machines in Antrim County, Michigan, had suffered from a 68% error rate. As noted above and in Chapter 1, this was not close to being true, right? So not only did they know this, so remember, this is, again, you want to talk about the deep state, right? Remember that this is hitting on all levels. Donald Trump is trying to pressure every part inside of his own government, right? His own former AG rebuked him. CISA rebuked him. The head of the FBI and the FBI investigative department rebuked him. His acting people are rebuking him, and his own White House counsel is rebuking him. And the executives over at Fox all know that this is fucking bullshit. Everybody knows this is bullshit, right? The net difference between the machine count and the hand recount was only 12 out of 15,718 total votes. The machines counted just one more vote for former Vice President Biden and then was tallied during the hand recount. Donoghue informed the president that he cannot and should not be relying on ASOG's claim because it was simply not true. This did not stop the president from later repeating the debunked allegations multiple times, including during his J6 speech at the Ellipse. He went through more conspiracies. He does this on every call. He did this with Raffensperger. If you've listened to the phone call, he just goes down every single conspiracy every single time. President Trump also wanted to talk a great deal about Georgia and the State Farm Arena video, claiming that it was fraud staring you right in the face. Oh, and he talks about Ruby Freeman again, who, by the way, I think she won a civil suit. Didn't she win a civil suit against Giuliani? Didn't Giuliani just concede and say, like, what was Giuliani's defense? He just said, like, what did he say? We were just joking? He said something, like, unbelievable.
Former Trump lawyer Rudy Giuliani admits he lied when he accused 2 Georgia election workers of ballot fraud during the 2020 election. Giuliani made that admission in a court filing for a defamation lawsuit brought by the workers Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss. He insists his claims are protected by the First Amendment free speech.
Oh, maybe that was it. Did he say that? I lied, but it's First Amendment? Fuck, does anybody have a link to the case?
Speech right. Giuliani also refuses to acknowledge his lies caused the women harm. Freeman and Moss testified during the January 6 hearings that they'd suffered intense harassment, including hateful and racist.
Jesus. Sorry, okay. True. You know it's bad when you have to plead the first. Oh no. He pled the first. I didn't know I couldn't say that. I thought this was a free country. I thought I could say whatever I wanted to. Destiny to publish his notes. My notes are all at destiny.gg/notes. I don't know when I last published. I think it was this morning. There's new stuff. I'll publish later. He kept fixating on the supposed suitcase video. They debunked the president's obsession. There is no suitcase. Donoghue made it clear. Suitcase is an official lockbox filled with genuine votes. The election workers simply did not scan ballots for former Vice President Biden multiple times. All of this was recorded by security cameras. And then, oh my God, he sounds just like my mom. You guys must not be following the internet the way that I do, the president remarked. The president pushed the claim that Pennsylvania reported 205,000 more votes than there were voters in the state. We'll look at whether we have more ballots in Pennsylvania than registered voters. Acting Attorney General Rosen replied, according to Donoghue, they should be able to check that out quickly. The DOJ can't and won't snap its fingers and change the outcome of the election. It doesn't work that way. I don't expect you to do that, President Trump responded. Just say the election was corrupt and leave the rest to me and the Republican congressman. Bruh. Donoghue explained that this is an exact quote from the president. We have an obligation to tell people that this is an illegal, corrupt election. President Trump told the team. Hold on, that's just such a good fucking quote. Is there like a full deposition or a full statement? I'll look at that. Leave it to us. Leave it to us. We got it, guys. It's such good drama. It's such a good fucking meme, dude. When President Trump made those demands on the 27th, it was already crystal clear that the DOJ, so he's demanding that they send out fake letters, basically, right? It was already crystal clear that the Department of Justice had found no evidence of systemic fraud. The department simply had no reason to assert that the 2020 presidential contest was an illegal, corrupt election. People tell me Jeff Clark is great and that I should put him in, President Trump said on the call. People want me to replace the DOJ leadership. Donoghue responded, Sir, that's fine. You should have the leadership you want. But understand, changing the leadership of the department won't change anything. The president didn't really care what facts have been uncovered by the DOJ. President Trump just wanted the department to say the election was corrupt so that he and the Republic... Okay, this is kind of an opinion, but yeah. Well, I mean, obviously I'd say it's true, but... On December 28th, 2020, Clark sent a 5-page, the coffee boy, okay, this is your DOJ cover, sent a 5-page draft letter to Donoghue and Rosen. This is your boss 2 and boss 1 of your Department of Justice, your Attorney General, your Deputy Attorney General, but they're acting. They're not confirmed by the Senate yet. They're just kind of like temps, basically. The letter was addressed to 3 Georgia state officials, Governor Brian Kemp, Speaker of the House David Ralston, and President pro tempore of the Senate Butch Miller. It contained places for Rosen and Donoghue to affix their signatures, which they steadfastly refused to do. Why the fuck is Clark the head of like the fucking environmental dick suck machines? Why is he sending this letter to the acting AG or deputy AG? It's fucking hilarious. The letter, if signed and sent, may very well have provoked a constitutional crisis. The letter was attached to an email from Clark in which he requested authorization to attend a classified briefing by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, led by DNI Ratcliffe, on foreign election interference issues. ODNI did not find any foreign interference in the voting process or counting, but Clark apparently believed some of the conspiracy theories that had been floated. Specifically, Clark claimed that hackers have evidence in the public domain that a Dominion machine accessed the internet through a smart thermostat with a net connection trail leading back to China. Clark added, ODNI may have additional classified evidence. This crackpot claim had been shared by other Trump officials and associates as well. Ultimately, after Clark received the ODNI briefing, he acknowledged to Donoghue that there was nothing in the briefing that would have supported his earlier suspicion about foreign involvement. Clark intended to send the letter to officials in Georgia and several other contested states that President Trump needed to flip if he was going to overturn the election results. The Department of Justice is investigating various irregularities in the 2020 election for President of the United States, Clark wrote. This is a lie, by the way. This is, by the way, okay, Sorry, hold on. I need you to understand something, okay? Okay? We only know this, okay, because we've wasted all of our fucking life, okay? All of our fucking life dealing with this shit, okay? Donald Trump pressuring through Clark, through Perry, through Jim Jordan, pressuring these people to force the DOJ to send out fake letters. Every single thing that we're reading now, all of these things have been declared by Roberts as being warranted of having absolute immunity. You cannot probe in any of these actions, so none of this is illegal, absolutely, and none of this can be used in the furtherance of any other crime. That's what we're talking about right now. When Roberts said, certain allegations, such as those involving Trump's discussions with the acting attorney general, are readily categorized in light of the nature of the president's official relationship to the office held by that individual. Other allegations, such as those involving Trump's interactions with the vice president, state officials, and certain private parties, and his comments to the general public, present more difficult questions. Okay? Because the president cannot be prosecuted for conduct within his exclusive constitutional authority, Trump is absolutely immune from prosecution for the alleged conduct involving his discussions with Justice Department officials, okay? And the rationale that Roberts gives is that, listen, okay? Because we're not having a factual disagreement here. It's not a factual disagreement. This is an interpretation of law. They're not saying, well, did Trump even really have those conversations? They're saying it doesn't matter. The government does not dispute that the indictments, now when they say the government here, they're talking about the government pressing charges, the federal government, right? Jack Smith. The government does not dispute that the indictments allegations regarding the Justice Department involve Trump's use of official power. The allegations, in fact, plainly implicate Trump's conclusive and preclusive authority. The executive branch has exclusive authority and absolute discretion to decide which crimes to investigate and prosecute, including with respect to allegations of election crime. And the president's management of the executive branch requires him to have unrestricted power to remove the most important of his subordinates, such as the attorney general, and their most important duties. The indictment's allegations that the requested investigations were shams or proposed for an improper purpose do not divest the president of exclusive authority over the investigative or the prosecutorial function of the Justice Department and its officials. Because of that, he is absolutely immune. So just be aware of that. As we read this, that's what Roberts is talking about. This is why I get so mad when people say that, like, oh, well, when you say, oh, so can the president order a hit on somebody and have them assassinated? And somebody goes, actually, no, it's not in the president's official powers to assassinate people. Oh, is it in his official powers to direct the DOJ to send false letters to states to win the election? That's not in his official powers, is it? But anyway, so just so you know, this is all that is now untouchable. This has all been stripped from the case, okay? And all of this activity is absolutely fucking criminal, all right? Clark intended to send the letter to officials in Georgia and several other contested states to basically for this lie. Clark continued, the department will update you as we are able on investigatory progress, but at this time we have identified significant concerns that may have impacted the outcome of the election in multiple states, including the state of Georgia. Clark continued by arguing that Georgia's state legislature should call a special session. In light of these developments, the department recommends that the Georgia General Assembly should convene in special session so that its legislators are in a special position to take additional testimony, receive new evidence, and deliberate on the matter consistent with its duties under the U.S. Constitution, Clark wrote. Clark referenced the fake electors that the president and his campaign organized and argued that there were two competing slates of electors, both of which were legitimate. There's that pesky slate of electors again. Crazy. The department believes that in Georgia and several other states, both a slate of electors supporting Joseph R. Biden Jr. and a separate slate of electors supporting Donald J. Trump gathered on December 14, 2020 at the proper location to cast their ballots, and that both sets of these ballots have been transmitted to Washington, D.C. to be opened by Vice President Pence, Clark wrote. The letter was a lie. Senior DOJ officials, Barr, Rosen, and Donoghue, had repeatedly stated the opposite. They found no evidence of fraud that would have impacted the election's results, none. Giuliani attempted to execute its dual-track strategy by both filing lawsuits and convincing state legislatures, blah, blah, blah. So the president and those around him sought to use the hefty imprimatur of the U.S. Department of Justice to achieve the same thing. No doubt, a letter coming from the Department of Justice is different from a meandering call from Giuliani or one of his associates. And because it was December 28th, and there was a little more than a week until the January 6th joint session of Congress, President Trump needed more and soon. Clark's letter, which laid out a plan that was most identical to what President Trump and his team had pressured state officials to carry out virtually since Election Day, could have been just what President Trump needed. When Giuliani was asked during his select committee deposition whether he remembered discussing DOJ issuing a letter like Clark's, Giuliani refused to answer because it implicated attorney-client privilege with President Trump. I like how, bro, if we just do like criminal conspiracies, but we're like all lawyers, does that mean like none of us have to testify to anything? But when asked to be recalled ever recommending that Clark be given election-related responsibilities to the DOJ, Giuliani said, I do recall saying to people that somebody should be put in charge of the Justice Department who isn't frightened of what's going to be done to their reputation because the Justice Department was filled with people like that. And the investigation also revealed that Clark and John Eastman, the guy that authored the memo, right, were in communication throughout this period. One person who had worked with Eastman and others in his circle was a lawyer installed to work with Clark at the Department of Justice in mid-December, the final weeks of the Trump administration, named Ken Klukowski. Klukowski was a Trump administration political appointee serving as a senior counsel under Clark in the DOJ Civil Division. After serving as a lawyer in the Office of Management and Budget for more than a year and volunteering as a lawyer for the Trump campaign after Election Day, Klukowski only joined the department when the administration's personnel staff expedited his appointment because the White House's Presidential Personnel Office wanted him in soon. On the morning of December 28th, Clark asked Klukowski to draft the Georgia letter for him. He dictated the substantive key points of the letter to Klukowski, told him exactly what to include. And then after that, he sent the letter to Clark, which Clark sent along to Rosen and Donoghue. Donoghue quickly responded to Clark's email stating, there is no chance that I would sign this letter or anything remotely like this. Fuck, do they have these emails? Somebody should go look this up, the annotation on 211. The plan set forth by Clark was, quote, not even within the realm of possibility, end quote. Donoghue warned that if they sent Clark's letter, it would be a grave step for the department to take, and it could have tremendous constitutional, political, and social ramifications for the country. Contrary to President Trump's and Clark's wild claims about the election, Donoghue stressed that the DOJ's ongoing investigations related to matters of such a small scale that they simply would not impact the outcome of the presidential election. Clark's assertion to the contrary was baseless. Donoghue and Rosen reaffirmed their opposition to the draft letter. December 29th meeting. The next day, Rosen, Donoghue, and Engel had a meeting with Mark Meadows, Pat Cipollone, and Cipolloni's deputy, Pat Philbin, in the White House Chief of Staff's office. While the meeting dealt primarily with the presidential transition, the group discussed a draft civil complaint modeled after Texas v. Pennsylvania that the president wanted the DOJ to file challenging the results of the presidential election, tentatively called U.S. v. Pennsylvania. The DOJ officials said that they had not had time to thoroughly review the proposed suit, but initially indicated that it appeared to be flawed and did not seem viable for the DOJ to file. Meadows suggested that the DOJ leadership meet with William Olson and Kurt Olson, the two attorneys affiliated with the Trump campaign that had been working on the proposed suit, and added that Eastman and a retired judge from North Carolina named Mark Martin both had views about the lawsuit. Can you imagine? What are Donoghue and Rosen's background? Imagine that you've worked your life and you've hit these positions where you're serving these pretty prestigiously high up positions in the White House, and the president's like, okay, listen, all right, I got a guy. My lawyer, okay, fuck you fucking retards. I got a guy who looked over this, all right, and he says this shit is sick, okay? I just need the DOJ letterhead on it, okay? We're going to file suit. It's going to be fucking based, okay? It's going to be based, all right? From Jeffrey Clark. Jeff and Rich, I would like to have your authorization to get a classified briefing tomorrow from ODNI, led by DNI Radcliffe, on foreign election interference issues. I can then assess how that relates to activating the IEEPA and the 2018 executive order powers on such matters, now twice renewed by the president, by the way. If you had not seen it, white hat hackers have evidence in the public domain that a Dominion machine accessed the internet through a smart thermostat with a net connection trail leading back to China. ODNI may have additional classified evidence. Okay, that's this. Attached is a draft letter concerning the broader topic of election irregularities of any kind. The concept is to send it to the governor, speaker, and president pro tem of each relevant state to indicate that in light of time urgency and sworn evidence of election irregularities presented to courts and to legislative committees, the legislatures thereof should each assemble and make a decision about elector appointment in light of their deliberations. I set it up for signature by the three of us. I think that we should get it out as soon as possible. Personally, I see no valid downsides to sending out the letter. we do a little lying. I put it together quickly, and I would want to do a formal site check before sending it, but I don't think we should let unnecessary moss grow on this. Who is this guy? Is like a what was he again? What was his position? You're talking to the acting attorney general, the top of the DOJ, and then the guy right beneath him. They're acting. They're not going to send it confirmed, but this is the head of the DOJ, and then the guy right beneath him. And you're like, we're going to go ahead and send this letter out. I just need you two dipshits to sign it for me, okay? As a small matter, I left open me signing as the assistant attorney general of the civil fucking environment or whatever, after an order from Jeff as acting attorney general, designating me as an actual acting attorney general of civil under the Ted Olson OLC opinion, and thus freeing up the acting AAG spot in ENRD for John Brightbill to assume. But that is a comparatively small matter. I wouldn't want to hold up the letter for that. But I continue to think that there's no downside with this view's 23 days left in the president's term to give John and I that added boost in DOJ titles. Jesus Christ. Can we just get like some promotions going here before we sign this shit? Because it's going to look like way more based. Okay. Jeff, I've only had a few moments to review the draft letter, and obviously there was a lot raised there that would have to be thoroughly researched and discussed. That said, there is no chance that I would sign this letter or anything remotely like this. While it may be true that the department is investigating various irregularities in the 2020 election for president, something we typically would not state publicly, the investigations that I am aware of, and who am I except for the fucking deputy, the second in command of the fucking Department of Justice, the investigations that I am aware of relate to suspicions of misconduct that are on such a small scale they simply would not affect or impact the outcome of the presidential election. Attorney General Barr made that clear to the public only last week, and I'm not aware of intervening developments that would change that conclusion. Thus, I know of nothing that would support the statement we have identified significant concerns that may have impacted the outcome of the election in multiple states. While we are always prepared to receive complaints and allegations relating to election fraud, and we will investigate them as appropriate, we simply do not currently have a basis to make such a statement. Despite dramatic claims to the contrary, we have not seen the type of fraud that calls into question the reported and certified results of the election. Also, the commitment that the department will update you as we are able on investigatory progress is dubious, as we do not typically update non-law enforcement personnel on the progress of any investigations. More importantly, I do not think the department's role should include making recommendations to a state legislature about how they should meet their constitutional obligation to appoint electors. Pursuant to the Electors Clause, the state of Georgia and every other state has prescribed the legal process through which they select their electors. While those processes include the possibility that election results may fail to make a choice, it is for the individual state to figure out how to address that situation should it arise. But as I note above, there is no reason to conclude that any state is currently in a situation in which the election has failed to produce a choice. Oh, he even has this. Despite the reference to the 1960 Hawaii situation and other historical anomalies such as the 1876 election, I believe this would be utterly without precedent. Even if I'm incorrect about this would be a grave step for the department to take and would have tremendous constitutional, political, and social ramifications for the country. Oh my God, it's a deposition. Oh shit, I do have time. We'll read a little bit. Fuck. I feel like depositions are like the big memes. You're not in a cucked courtroom all day. It's more relaxed. Still under oath, though. Destiny, who's the guy sending these emails to the DOJ people? The Don't Let Moss Grow guy? It's Clark. He's just a guy that Trump likes in the DOJ that Trump's been talking to. Basically, Trump is like, here you've got Big Meanie 1 and Big Meanie 2, okay? These are your cuckolded department heads, your attorney general and your deputy attorney general, okay? Now you're the president, okay? Now you've got all these stupid fucking states, well, really just 7 of them, okay? You've got 7 states here, and you need them to fucking stop they need to change their elections, okay? They need to change their vote, all right? You've already hooked them up with 7 bullshit slates of electors. We just need to get them to pick those, okay? Well, okay, here's the plan. Okay, listen up, here's the plan, okay? Let's go talk to our AG and our acting AG, and let's say, listen, can you guys just send letters to the 7 states and say, guys, we found some crazy shit. You should probably like just authorize the second slate of electors in all your states. Just authorize them, okay? And then the head cucks look at Trump and they're like, no, there's literally no reason to say this. We're not just gonna make shit up. And then Trump's like, okay. And Trump disappears, but not before saying, there's a guy that works in the DOJ. I think his name is Clark. He seems like a cool dude. I wonder if he's got the balls to do what it takes. And then Trump leaves. And now these guys are like, okay, why the fuck does Donald Trump, okay, who doesn't know, he probably doesn't even know the 3 branches of government. Why the fuck does Donald Trump know the fucking agency head or the head of the environmental fucking council subcommittee, whatever the fuck of the DOJ? So then they go and they talk to Clark, and Clark, okay, who's like a coffee boy in the DOJ. They're like, why the fuck is Donald Trump bringing you up? And Clark's like, well, I don't know. Maybe Donald Trump just needs a brave guy to get the job done, okay? And like, this is like violating policy. Like, you're not allowed to do this, right? Like, he has to go through us. He can't just talk to you, you fucking retard. And he's like, actually, you're both the retards because this is more important than policy. This is about saving our country. And they're like, okay. So Clark and Trump have conversations, and Trump's like, you know what? You seem like a cool guy, Clark. You know what? Actually, I'm going to hook you up with a friend of mine, okay? I got a Rick Perry over here, and I think a Giuliani over here. They're going to talk to you. And then they talk to Clark. And you know what, Clark? You're a brave dude. You need to do something about the DOJ. You guys, you got to send letters. You got to tell these states that the election is bullshit, okay? You've got to save the country. You have to save. We're facing oblivion. It's up to you, Clark. And then Clark is like, holy shit, you're fucking right, okay? So then Clark's like, I got an idea, okay? So Clark, okay, he gets some help with some other bullshit dude. He writes this letter, and he's like, okay, I got the letter. It's going to say there's huge voter fraud, all right? We found it, all right? We just need a little bit more time to prove it, okay? So he writes this whole letter, and then Clark goes back up to the bosses and like, hello, why are you talking to us again? And he's like, listen, I got a sick thing, okay? Here's a letter. Can you promote me and this other dude so that we're like more based on our titles? And then I need you guys to sign this letter, and then we're good. And then obviously these two look at the letter and like, okay, well, this is saying a bunch of like bullshit and lies. So why the fuck would we sign this letter? We're not going to fucking sign this letter. It's completely fucking fake. And then there, that's where we're at in the story. Okay, we're just reading all of it. I'm sorry. It's just so fucking, it's so memey. Okay. On December 31st, 2020, President Trump suddenly returned to Washington, D.C. from Florida, where he'd been celebrating Christmas, probably preparing a room for his new secret documents that were going to be coming in a few weeks. Shortly after Air Force One landed, Rosen and Donoghue were summoned to the Oval Office once again. They met with the president that afternoon. President Trump was a little more agitated than he had been in the meeting on the 15th, according to Donoghue. The president remained adamant that the election had been stolen, that he won, that the American people were being harmed by fraud, and that he believed the Justice Department should be doing something about it. The president once again raised the prospect of naming Clark the acting attorney general. Keep in mind that Clark is like barely even, not to sound mean or whatever, he's like barely even like a real lawyer, okay? He has no experience, I don't think, in any sort of like investigation, like no criminal, anything. He clerked in the U.S. Court of Appeals in the Sixth Circuit, and then he served as the Deputy Assistant Attorney General for the Environment and Natural Resources Division of the Justice Department. Did stuff with the EPA. In Trump's administration, he was nominated to become, again, for the it was the U.S. The Assistant Attorney General for the Environment and Natural Resources Division. But okay, so just that's so Trump is like, by the way, this guy, maybe we should make him. Maybe he's the man enough to do what needs to be done. Okay. The president once again raised the prospect of naming Clark the acting attorney general. Donoghue and Rosen repeated what they had told the president previously, that he should have the leaders that he wanted, but it's really not going to change anything. Trump again asked why the DOJ would not file a complaint with the Supreme Court, alleging that the election was fraudulent. I don't even know if Trump knows what the fuck standing means. Like what? Like you can't just go to the Supreme Court and like say like, can you just like do something? Like we just want to sue somebody. It's like you're not even allowed to. You're the federal government. Like what right do you have to sue a state about how they set their elections up? What the fuck are you talking about? You can't do this. Rosen and Donoghue explained once more that the DOJ did not have standing. The DOJ represents the federal government, not the American people, President Trump was incredulous. He became very animated. The president kept repeating the same questions. How is that possible? How can that possibly be? President Trump also floated the prospect of naming a special counsel, suggesting Ken Cuccinelli from the Department of Homeland Security as a possible candidate. This sounds like the kind of thing that would warrant appointment of a special counsel. Donoghue recalled the president saying, the president did not order the DOJ to name a special counsel, but he was clearly still thinking about it. Donoghue and Rosen didn't say a lot in response, but simply pointed out there was no evidence to support that the many individual allegations that had been made, so there was no evidence that would warrant appointing a special counsel. President Trump again raised the Antrim County, Michigan allegations. As mentioned above, bipartisan election officials in Antrim County completed a hand recount of all ballots on December 17th that should have resolved the matter once and for all. There was simply no evidence that Dominion's machines had manipulated the result, but President Trump would not accept this reality. During the December 31st meeting, the president also raised the prospect of seizing the voting machines. Why don't you guys seize machines, he asked. You guys should seize machines because there will be evidence. Donoghue recalled President Trump saying, Rosen pushed back, saying that the DOJ had no basis to seize voting machines from the states. They needed a search warrant. But there was no evidence to justify one. Rosen explained to President Trump again the DOJ had no responsibility for oversight as the states conduct the elections. Rosen added that to the extent that any federal agency is involved, it's the Department of Homeland Security, which ensures software selection and quality control. At that point, the president called Ken Cuccinelli. Donoghue recalled the president saying something along the lines of, Ken, the acting attorney general is telling me it's your job to seize machines. Rosen had said nothing of the sort, but Cuccinelli quickly shot down the president's line of inquiry, making it clear that the Department of Homeland Security had no such authority. White House counsel Pat Cipollone was also in attendance and supported the DOJ leadership throughout the meeting. When Rosen spoke to Clark by phone on December 31st or January 1st, Clark revealed that he had spoken to the president again, despite previously promising Rosen and Donoghue that he would inform them of any contact that he'd received from the White House. Clark told Rosen that President Trump had offered Clark the position of acting attorney general, his job, right? Yeah, the president offered me your job, yeah. And he asked him to respond by Monday, January 4th. Clark, however, said that he needed to do some due diligence related to claims of election fraud, which ones, before deciding whether he would accept the president's offer. January 2nd, Rosen and Donoghue confront Clark again, okay? They find him in the hallway. On Saturday, January 2nd, Rosen and Donoghue attempted once again to persuade Clark to stand down. The two reiterated that Clark should stop meeting with the president. Donoghue reprimanded Clark, emphasizing that he was the boss and that Clark's ongoing contacts with the president were in violation of DOJ's White House contact policy. Clark acknowledged that he had been briefed by the ODNI, as he had requested, and that there was nothing in that briefing that would have supported his earlier suspicion about foreign involvement. Nevertheless, Clark still wanted to send his letter to Georgia and other contested states alleging voter fraud. During the conversation, Clark confirmed that President Trump had offered him the position of acting attorney general. Clark told Rosen that he would decline the offer if Rosen and Donoghue signed his dishonest letter to officials in Georgia. You don't want me to have your job? Fine. I'll tell him no, but I'll only tell him no if you sign the letter that says that the election is fake, okay? If you sign the letter, I'll go back to the office of, fucking trees and leaves, and we'll be chill. The two refused once again, making it clear that there was no way we were going to sign that letter. Rosen reiterated his decision in an email on the night of January 2nd, writing, I confirmed again today that I am not prepared to sign such a letter. That same day, Trump attempted to coerce Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger into manufacturing enough votes to steal the election in the state. That call is discussed in Chapter 2. That's I just need 15,000 votes or whatever he says. But one part of it deserves mention here. During that same call, President Trump brought up B.J. Pack, whom President Trump had appointed as the U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Georgia. President Trump referred to Pack as, "You're never Trumper U.S. Attorney there." The implication was that Pack was not doing enough to validate Donald Trump's fictitious claims of voter fraud. President Trump's mention of Pack proved to be ominous. January 3rd, Clark tells his boss that he will take his job. You know what, Rosen? I think I am going to take your fucking job. On the 3rd, Clark informed Rosen that he had decided to accept the president's offer for his fucking job. Clark offered Rosen. Clark said, how about this? I'll take your job. You can take Donna shit's job over there, okay? fuck him. I didn't even like him. You have Donoghue's job. I'll be your boss now. How about that? Okay. Clark offered Rosen the position of his deputy. Rosen thought that Clark's offer was preposterous and nonsensical. Rosen told the select committee that there was no universe where I was going to do that, to stay on and support someone else doing things that were not consistent with what I thought should be done. Donoghue believed that it was a done deal, and Clark would become the head of the DOJ. But Pat Cipollone told Rosen that it was not a done deal and that we should fight this out at the White House. The White House call logs from January 3rd show that President Trump and Clark spoke 4 times that day, starting at 6:59 a.m. The first 3 calls of the day, 2 in the morning. Wait, hold on. Somebody said, I thought the Senate has to affirm the president's pick. How long can they be the acting attorney general for? Who knows? The end of the Trump administration was real wacky. Who knows how long you could be acting for? But that is correct. An acting attorney general means that the president has appointed you to the role, but it's waiting for the Senate confirmation for the actual person. So they're just an acting attorney general. Yeah. The first 3 calls of the day, 2 in the morning and 1 in the early afternoon, show that the president spoke with Mr. Jeffrey Clark. The final call between the 2 of them from 4:19 to 4:22 p.m., however, shows that President Trump spoke to acting attorney general Jeffrey Clark, suggesting that Clark had, in fact, accepted the president's offer. Holy shit. He changed his name on Discord. Wait, what the fuck? Did he give him mod? Why is his name in red? What the fuck? Acting Attorney General Rosen told the Select Committee that he would have felt comfortable being replaced by either Donoghue or Engel, but he did not want the Department of Justice to be put in a posture where it would be doing things that were not consistent with the truth, were not consistent with its own appropriate role, or were not consistent with the Constitution. As a result, Rosen took 4 immediate steps to try and prevent Clark's ascension to Attorney General. First, he called Mark Meadows and asked him to set up a meeting for that evening with President Trump. So Mark Meadows is in the position of, is it not chief of staff. It's like the most senior White House staff manager guy, right? It is. It's the White House chief of staff. Okay. This is like your guy who like manages everybody. When you like tell the president, like, I need to talk to, like, it just everybody, like, this is the guy that you talk to like make anything basically happen. He's like the top of all of your, like organizing everybody that you need to talk to do anything basically, right? This is your chief of staff, your go-to dude basically. Rosen calls Mark Meadows, and he asks him to set up a meeting for that evening with President Trump. Secondly, he spoke to Cipollone, who told Rosen that Clark's appointment was not inevitable and that he would also be at the meeting that evening to support Rosen and Donoghue. Third, Rosen called Engel and asked him to come to the DOJ headquarters so that he could attend the White House meeting. And then finally, Rosen asked Donoghue and another senior department attorney named Patrick Hovakimian? Hovakimian, I don't know, whatever, to convene a meeting of the rest of the department's leadership to describe the situation to them and hear how they would react to Clark's appointment. So he's setting the alarm bells, okay? Hovakimian set up a conference call. Although some of the assistant attorney generals were not able to participate in the call, all of those who did agreed that they would resign if Rosen were removed from office. Pat drafted a resignation letter that read, "This evening, after Acting Attorney General Jeff Rosen, over the course of the last week, repeatedly refused the president to direct instructions to utilize the Department of Justice's law enforcement powers for improper ends, the president removed Jeff from the department. Pedog, Rich Donoghue, and I, Acting Attorney General, Deputy Acting Attorney General, PA, Deputy Acting, or Deputy Attorney General, fuck, what is this? Whatever. Donoghue, this is Donoghue, Acting Deputy Attorney General, and I resigned from the department effective immediately." Hovakimian never sent the letter because the threat of mass resignation dissuaded President Trump from replacing Rosen. Regardless, the letter stated a plain truth. President Trump was trying to use the DOJ for his own improper ends. So, okay. Fuck, I'm sorry. This is also fucking memes. January 3rd. At Rosen's request, our Attorney General, our Acting Attorney General, he asks White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows to arrange a meeting with the president at 6:15 p.m., January 3rd. We're 3 days from the certification of the vote. We should pause and reflect on the timing and purpose of the meeting. Congress was set to meet in a joint session in less than 72 hours. The states had already certified their electors. Former Vice President Biden was going to be certified as the winner of the 2020 presidential election. There was no material dispute over Biden's victory. Trump and his lawyers had not produced any evidence of significant fraud. Instead, they presented one nonsensical conspiracy theory after another. The DOJ and FBI were forced to debunk these claims, and they did. None of this stopped President Trump's effort to subvert the DOJ. Quite the opposite. The president pushed forward with a plan to install Jeffrey Clark as the acting AG, apparently to attempt to interfere with the certification of the EC vote on January 6th. It is for this reason that Rosen requested an emergency meeting on January 3rd. Before heading into the Oval Office, Rosen and Donoghue discussed the possible leadership change with Cipollone and Pat Philbin. They were completely opposed to it, Donoghue explained. In fact, no one who attended the Oval Office meeting supported leadership change other than Jeffrey Clark, this fucking loser coffee boy who's just tagging along, be like, I'm going to be your fucking boss, guys. By the way, I talked to Trump again. I know I'm not supposed to, but like, what are you going to do about it? Donoghue didn't initially join the meeting, but the president soon called him in. During the meeting, Clark attempted to defend the last-minute move to make him the acting attorney general. Clark said that he would conduct real investigations that would, in his view, uncover widespread fraud. Clark declared that this is the last opportunity to sort of set things straight with this defective election, and that he had the intelligence, the will, and the desire to pursue these matters in the way that the president thought most appropriate. Everyone else quickly disagreed. President Trump asked Donoghue and Engel, what would they do? And they both confirmed that they would resign. Donoghue added that theirs would not be the only resignations. You should understand that your entire department leadership will resign, Donoghue recalled saying. This included every assistant attorney general. Mr. President, these aren't bureaucratic leftovers from another administration, Donoghue continued. You picked them. This is your leadership team. You sent every one of them to the Senate. You got them confirmed. Donoghue argued that the president would look bad in the wake of the mass resignations. What is that going to say about you when we all walk out at the same time? Donoghue recalled asking the president, and what happens if, within 48 hours, we have hundreds of resignations from your Justice Department because of your actions? What does that say about your leadership? Steve Engel reinforced Donoghue's point, saying that Clark would be leading a graveyard. White House counsel Pat Cipollone threatened to resign as well, describing Clark's letter as a murder-suicide pact. Cipollone warned that the letter would damage everyone who touches it, and no one should have anything to do with it. Some of the participants in the meeting argued that Clark was the wrong person for the job of Attorney General. Clark attempted to defend his credentials, arguing that he had been involved in complicated civil and environmental litigation. That's right, you're an environmental lawyer, Donoghue fired back. How about you go back to your office and we'll call you when there's an oil spill? The meeting lasted approximately 3 hours. Only toward the end of the contentious affair did President Trump decide to reverse his earlier decision to make Clark the acting assistant attorney general. Donoghue recalled President Trump addressing Clark along the following lines. I appreciate your willingness to do it. I appreciate you being willing to suffer the abuse. But the reality is, you're not going to get anything done. These guys are going to quit. Everyone else is going to resign. It's going to be a disaster. The bureaucracy will eat you alive. And no matter how you want to get things done in the next few weeks, you won't be able to get it done. And it's not going to be worth the breakage. Keep in mind, hello? For the Kino cinema that this is, just remember, we will never, ever, ever get insight like this again. We will never, ever, ever get insight like this again because all of this will be beyond criminal review and it will be beyond any sort of judicial inquiry, probably beyond any sort of congressional inquiry. You'll never get any information like this again. So enjoy this Kino. This is the final Kino you'll ever get, okay? Roberts has said no more. Clark tried to change President Trump's mind, saying, history is calling. This is our opportunity, and we can get this done. But the president was clearly rattled by the threat of mass defections and reiterated that the change would not happen. President Trump then wondered what would happen to Clark and if Donoghue was going to fire him. Donoghue explained that only the president had that authority. Does he not know that the president is the one who appoints and fires like his officers or whatever, or their inferior officers, right? I think is what you call them. That was the end of the matter. We all got up and walked out of the Oval Office, Donoghue recalled. But for one DOJ employee, the matter was not entirely settled. During the January 3rd meeting in the Oval Office, President Trump complained bitterly about B.J. Pack, the U.S. attorney for the Northern District of Georgia. Barr had tasked Pack with investigating the State Farm Arena video in early December 2020. Imagine that you're like given like a fucking YouTube video, okay? I need you to investigate this, okay? I need this is a 3-minute video. I need the 20-minute video, okay? Like the FBI and Georgia state officials, PAC concluded that nothing nefarious had occurred. President Trump was dissatisfied. No wonder nothing's been found at Atlanta, because the U.S. attorney there is a never-Trumper, Donoghue recalled the president saying. This is Trump's own appointed judge, right? I think. He was nominated by President Donald Trump to become the United States Attorney for the Northern District of Georgia. It was confirmed by the Senate 2017. And he gets called a never-Trumper. Yikes. Donoghue objected, saying PAC had been doing his job. But the president insisted, pointing out that PAC criticized him years earlier. This guy is a never-Trumper, the president reiterated. He should have never been in my administration to begin with. How did this guy end up in my administration? The president threatened to fire PAC. Can you fire a federal judge, or do you have to impeach? I don't know, actually, for federal judges. When Donoghue pointed out that PAC was already planning to resign the next day, damn, I'd be like, fuck this. Wait, did he say he was resigning because of Trump's bullshit? A Monday. Wait, when Donoghue pointed out that PAC was already planning to resign the next day, a Monday, President Trump insisted that it be PAC's last day on the job. PAC later confirmed to Donoghue that he would be leaving the next day. President Trump asked if those in attendance at the Oval Office meeting knew Bobby Christine, who was the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Georgia. Even though PAC had a first assistant who was next in line for PAC's job upon his resignation, President Trump wanted Christine to take the role. Christine did take over for PAC, but he did not find any evidence of fraud either. It was Donoghue's impression that Christine concluded that the election matters were handled appropriately. Later in the evening of January 3rd, President Trump called Donoghue to pass along yet another conspiracy theory. The president had heard that an ICE agent outside of Atlanta was in custody of a truck filled with shredded ballots. Donoghue explained that immigrations and customs enforcement agents are part of the DHS, Department of Homeland Security, so the matter would be under that department's purview. President Trump asked Donoghue to inform Ken Cuccinelli. That story, like all the others, turned out to be fiction when DOJ investigators evaluated the claim. The truck was carrying shredded ballots, but they were from a previous election. The old ballots had been shredded to make room for storing ballots for the 2020 election. Okay, and then there's one more. Okay, that was one big fight, but there was another huge one with Sidney Powell and I think it was White House counsel. They were like screaming at each other, right? When was this? I read this for the Alex Jones debate. I didn't use any of this. None of this. It was 845 pages. And none of it came up with fucking dipshit Wald or Alex shit Jones. Fuck me, dude. But it's Keno. This is Keno. I think that might be what this part of the deposition was about. Did Giuliani give you any indication of why he was calling you about this? No, the phone call literally came out of the blue. I think this is Herschmann. I guess the part that's surprising to me is that he would be doing that on the morning of the 6th. Oh no, this is later on. I'm sorry. It seems pretty late to be seeking somebody's thoughts on an issue as monumental as the one you discussed with him. This is on the 6th. I'm sorry, this is later on, okay? Are you going to include any of this in the video? Probably not. It's just too long. But it's like, it's so much. It's just so many memes. There could be like a whole play from this. Like, there's so many good memes here. It seems pretty late to be seeking somebody's thoughts on an issue as monumental as the one you discussed with him. I don't have an answer for that. I can only tell you that I remember the phone call. Do any members have questions? Okay, and then questioning. I guess before we move from Dr. Eastman, did you have any communications with Dr. Eastman either on January 6th or any time after that? I did. Can you tell us about those? Yes, it was the day after. Eastman, I don't remember why he called me, or he texted me or called me, he wanted to talk with me. And he said that he couldn't reach others, and he started to ask me about something dealing with Georgia and preserving something potentially for appeal. And I said to him, are you out of your fucking mind, right? I said, because I only want to hear 2 words coming out of your mouth from now on, orderly transition. I said, I don't want to hear any other fucking words coming out of your mouth, no matter what, other than orderly transition. Repeat those words to me. And what did he say? Eventually, he said orderly transition. I said, good, John. Now I'm going to give you the best free legal advice you've ever gotten in your life. Get a great fucking criminal defense lawyer. You're going to need it. And then I hung up on him. Do you remember anything else about the conversation? That was it. Did you have any communication with him after that? I don't believe so. Okay, and that was on the 7th. Just to double back, did you have any conversation with Dr. Easton on the 6th? Nope, I'm sorry. There was one other thing that I told him. I'm sorry. What I told him on that call is, about him speaking at the Ellipse on that morning. And I did say to him, in a rather harsh tone, you got up there and you fucking spoke at the Ellipse at a rally? You're a law professor and you're speaking at a rally, right? What type of fucking lawyer are you? Or law professor are you? And then so that was part of the 7th. I did not speak to him on the 6th. Did you either see or hear or read Dr. Easton's remarks from the Ellipse rally? No, I remember seeing a picture of him, I think, standing up there with a hat on. I mean, it was freezing that day, and I didn't plan on going to the Ellipse, so it was a brutally cold day. Did you end up going to the Ellipse? I did. I left. I went to the Ellipse in part of whatever motorcade or car there was, but I walked back by myself in the middle, or at some point while the president was still speaking. Why'd you end up going to the Ellipse? I thought after hearing the tone of the conversation between the president and the vice president, maybe I could be helpful in trying to temper some of the emotions that were running high. Do you know who's transcribed? This is Herschmann, who worked in the... Page 196, talking about Jeff Clark. This is White House legal counsel? Wait, hold on. Herschmann. Senior advisor to the president. Okay. The office of the White House. So he's a senior advisor here. And then Mark Meadows would be his boss, the chief of staff. Okay, sorry. Fuck me, dude. God damn it. Bro, my time. It's just Kino. I know we're running out of time before you have to leave for a flight, so I'd like to turn it to the Jeffrey Clark story. So rather than me asking you a lot of detailed questions, why don't you just sort of start off with what's your understanding of how Jeffrey Clark came to the president's attention? I don't know who brought him in. Someone said at one point that it was Representative Perry, but I don't know if that's accurate or not. I got a call. I was sitting on a plane flying back from Texas to D.C., and Jeff Rosen called me, and he said, "Where are you?" I said, "I'm on a plane. What's up?" And he said, "When are you going to be back?" And I said, "In 4 hours." And he's like, "It's going to be too late." And I'm like, what are you talking about? "There's a meeting with Jeff Clark." I've never met Jeff Clark. And I said, "Where?" And he said, "The Oval." I said, "Okay, relax." He goes, "You've got to get back." So I remember calling Molly. I may have gone even into the bathroom on the plane because at that point, I don't remember if the doors were closed or not. I think barring it being Jeff, I'd say, "Gee," I wouldn't have answered. I said, "Molly, there's a meeting?" She said, "Yes." I said, "Just stall it until I get there. I'm supposed to land at this time." I landed. I called Molly. I said, "Okay," I landed, and I came. I flew into Dulles, and I took a car over to the White House. And when I got there, we met. I went up to Pat Cipolloni's office. Jeff was there. Rich Donoghue was there. Steve Engel, Pat Cipolloni, and Pat Philbin. And I got a general discussion as to what Jeff Clark was proposing, and I was like, okay, don't worry about it. This is never happening. What was he proposing? That he become acting attorney general. I lost you guys, by the way. He would become acting attorney general, and I think I had known of the name, that he was some civil person at DOJ dealing with environmental something like that. And we went down to the Oval. I think Philbin was sitting in the far, facing the president. Phil was on the right. And I think it was me, and then Rosen was to my left. And then I remember Steve Engel being all the way on the far end, and Donoghue was initially not in the meeting. And Jeff Clark was making a play that he be put in charge of the DOJ and become acting attorney general. And that if he got that, he would take certain steps. At one point, I said to the president, Rich Donoghue, he's here. And I don't remember if he suggested that Rich come in, but he said, get Rich to come in. And somebody went out and brought Rich into the meeting, and he sat like in between people on the couch behind. And Jeffrey Clark was proposing that Jeff Rosen be replaced by Jeff Clark, and I thought the proposal was asinine. So I got teased a little bit by Jeff or Rich afterwards that I know they testified before the Senate committee and said Eric was, extremely aggressive, and he's trying to be polite about it. Yeah, it was. I did not think Jeffrey Clark was remotely qualified to become attorney general, and I thought this was like his lifelong dream to have this opportunity, and he was making a pitch, and every time he would get clobbered over the head, he would say call to order. You're the president. It's your decision. You get the chance to make this decision, and you've heard everybody, and you can make the determination. And then we jump back in, and we really clobber him. And at one point, I remember saying, let me walk you through, Jeff, what you want to do. And I cross-examined him in front of the president as to what his strategy was. And when he finished discussing what he planned on doing, I said, fucking asshole, congratulations. You just admitted your first step or act that you would take as attorney general would be committing a felony and violating Rule 68. You're clearly the right candidate for the job. And he was, and it was clear. I mean, everybody was on his case. The guy had never been before a grand jury, let alone having any idea how a criminal case would be prosecuted. And the people at DOJ people had said that they would quit if he got the role. And it went on for a while. And Jeff would keep coming back and he'd keep trying to get the president to consider it. And the president at the end, he kept on saying, listening to Jeff. And then the second Jeff would call, I forget what term he was using, like, a call to order or something. And you get, a vote. Was it call the question? Call the question. Sorry, I couldn't remember the term. And he was just like, what are you talking about? Where are you? And later on, I made fun of Bill, Cipollone, and Steve Engel. I said to them, what's up with Kirkland and Ellis? I get you three guys, Jeff Rosen and Bill Barr. And then I get, this lunatic. And, others that had all gone through Kirkland and Ellis, I said, you're either a brilliant lawyer or you're in the nut job category. But I thought Jeff's proposal, Clark's proposal, was nuts. I mean, here's a guy that at a certain point, listen, the best I can tell is the only thing you know about environmental and election challenges is they both start with E. And based on your answers tonight, I'm not even certain that you know that. But he was completely berated at that point, and I can't even tell you where he got it in his head that he should be the acting attorney general. But the president listened, and it was like, I'm not doing this. Did you have an understanding? And I'm sorry, and I remember Cipollone saying, this is a murder-suicide pact. What do you think he meant by that? That doing a deal with Jeff Clark, what Jeff was proposing would be like a mutual destruction. This is crazy. Did you have any understanding of whether Jeff Clark had previous conversations with the president about possibly being appointed as acting attorney general? It was clear, I thought, that they had spoken at some point beforehand, but it's clear that he didn't know Clark well. Hold on. If you're listening to me in the background, if you're not watching the stream, I'm reading this word for word. Okay, this is the deposition word for word. Okay, I'm just reading this straight down. Okay, none of this is improv. I'm not adding anything. Okay, what document is this? This is Herschmann's testimony before the January 6th committee over basically everything that happened. Yeah, but it's clear that he didn't know Clark well. But I really looked at this and thought, this guy is like trying to live out his lifelong dream of becoming attorney general to just come up with this ridiculous idea about how to do it. And his proposal, it was so idiotic about what he was describing that if you understood how a criminal division worked and grand jury processes worked and search warrants, it was completely ridiculous. What was he proposing that he would do if he became acting attorney general? It was seizing machining, confiscating voting machines, and he didn't explain how he was going to do that. I said, you're not going to get a search warrant, right? Well, why don't you tell me how you're going to get a search warrant, Jeff? It'd be a nice education for me. I said, I've gotten a few in my professional career. Why don't you walk me through how the process works? And I was like, let me guess. You don't have any fucking idea, do you? And I said, so you'd obviously go to the grand jury route, right? You'd obviously have to issue a grand jury subpoena to get a hold of all the equipment, right? And I go, yeah, okay. And then you're going to take it and you're going to hold a press conference and make it all public, right? Yeah. And then you're going to make these articulations, right? And I said, well, did anyone ever explain to you Rule 68, right? And then it deteriorated down to, literally, congratulations. You'd have to be the first attorney general candidate in history that admits the first act as attorney general would be to commit a felony. And then Donoghue laced into him. He couldn't even find a grand jury. He didn't even know where it was. And Steve Engel, he was on an island trying to pitch this idea. Do you know whether in advance of that meeting that the president had offered Jeffrey Clark the position of acting attorney general? I don't. I can tell you that it was clear to me Jeffrey Clark was making a run at the president to get a job by pitching something that under scrutiny would have never withstood anything, forgetting that people were saying they would quit. That was kind of almost neither here nor there, since his theory to me never had a chance of going anywhere. Do you recall whether there was any discussion of the Justice Department sending a letter to state officials asking or telling them that there was voter fraud in their states and asking the state legislatures to convene to consider whether sending an alternate slate of electors? I don't remember the exact language. I know that he prepared a letter that he was proposing to send. He wanted to discuss sharing with the president, and I was not shared with the president, and it was not shared with the president. But I know that he had a letter that Rosen, or either before or after, I don't remember, others described as being nuts. Do you remember whether you ever saw the letter? I probably saw it afterwards. I didn't see it before the meeting. You made reference to possible resignations. Can you tell us about that? Jeff and Rich had said that large groups of DOJ, senior people at the DOJ would resign if Jeffrey Clark got appointed acting attorney general. Do you know who? Rich and Jeff, obviously. I don't remember who else. And Steve Engel as well. I think Steve may have said it in the meeting. It was clear to me in that meeting that President Trump was not going to appoint Jeffrey Clark as acting AG. He had been, in my view, completely and absolutely humiliated by I mean, Rich was aggressive and the trial lawyer, as I say, mentality, but everybody was really blasting him. Do you recall whether the president ever said anything to Jeffrey Rosen to the effect of, well, you're not going to do anything for me, but this guy, meaning Jeffrey Clark, would? No, I don't recall that. I've been in a lot of meetings and obviously contentious stuff. I don't know if I ever saw any lawyer get more lambasted and get smashed over the head than Jeff Clark did. And he's so out of touch with reality that I remember he was walking out and he turns to Pat Cipollone and he said, no hard feelings. And I don't remember what Pat said to him. I know we discussed afterwards. If I were them, I would have assigned him to somewhere, the farthest reaches humanly possible, where cell service came every 3 years. I was like, this guy's nuts. Did you say whether you'd resign if Jeffrey Clark was appointed acting attorney general? I don't remember. I might have, but my view was by the time we were done with Jeff Clark, there was no way in the world he was going to get appointed AG. Do you remember? Go ahead. This guy, he got clobbered. You're sitting there with the Office of Legal Counsel, White House Counsel, the acting attorney general, the deputy attorney general, myself, deputy White House counsel. And Jeffrey Clark was not, even in my view, remotely qualified for the position he was seeking, especially for the region he was seeking it. He just had no chance in the world. Do you recall Pat Cipollone said whether he would resign if Jeffrey Clark was appointed acting AG? I don't remember. He may have said that. I just don't remember. Do you remember whether Pat Philbin said he would resign? He may have also said it. It may have been possible at some point. Everyone just said it to make the point. I'm just telling you, I really took this as this nut job was trying to live out his lifelong dream of making himself attorney general. And he figured this is the pathway in. He wasn't expecting what happened in that meeting. He was ill-equipped for it. The beatdown that he took. Okay, what happened after the meeting? What was discussed after the meeting? I stayed back a little bit with the president. He asked me to stay back. We went upstairs to Pat's office, kind of laughed over what happened. He said to me, I think we all need a drink. We had a drink thinking like, okay, that's the craziest thing in the world. And kind of said, Clark's, the comment that he made to Cipollone about no hard feelings, like, everything is okay, even though I just tried that stunt. It was like, okay, this guy needs to be assign him somewhere else on earth if he's staying. And that was it. Why'd the president ask you to stay behind? I don't know. I'd been around him a lot and just, I think, knew 100% with confirmation that the guy's not qualified and his pitch to you was ridiculous. Tell us more, Mr. Herschmann, about his conduct. The president. Okay, do we need to read any more of this? Tell us more, Mr. Herschmann, about his conduct. The president's during this discussion. I understand that Clark was clobbered. Was the president asking him questions? Was he chiming in? I'm curious if you could tell us more about how he participated in the meeting. I don't remember him participating much. He may have said a throwaway line like people say he's smart or something like that. I don't remember that. I just remember, him getting, it was, I don't know how else to describe it. Jeffrey Clark got his head handed to him, but I don't remember the president reacting except that, at the very end saying, okay, I appreciate you're making this pitch to me and everything else. I'm not going to do it. That was I don't remember what he said in between that, if anything. We're going to just, it's so wacky. I'm sorry. Okay, let me just breeze through this real quick. These are Keynote 2, bro. These fucking emails. I'm sorry, but this is the shit that's going on in the White House. And then conservatives are like, this is actually very serious, okay? Democrats are the deep state, by the way. It's like, really? Seriously?